Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is Election Edge, Tuesday's edition, 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 3 o'clock here on the West Coast. 5 weeks until Election Day, folks, and what a day we've had today. You saw it on your sets earlier today. Iran launching attacks into Israel. It's debate night in America. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Woody Johnston and Autry Pruitt, both Election Ed veterans. Happy to have both of you back with me today.
Thanks for having us on.
Hey, Autry, let me start with you. You saw the same thing I saw today. The Israelis basically absorbed 181 missiles launched from Iran. The U.S. Navy apparently has played a critical role in helping eliminate a lot of these missiles, as well as the Israeli missile defense system. Autry, what did you make today of the Iranian action? And second question, what type of an effect do you think Israel will response be? Woody, same question to you. I guess we've got Autry frozen on the screen right now.
Yeah, he's stuck in this one position, which kind of reminds me of But, here's the thing. The foreign policy of the Biden administration has just been a complete disaster. And frankly, I don't think the media or even the Republican Party does a good enough job showing it time after time after time, from the withdrawal from Afghanistan to Ukraine to Israel. And now on the eve of a debate, we're seeing just the result of the Joe Biden foreign policy. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris foreign policy. They can't, when Trump was in office, we had peace in the Middle East. We had, no new wars, and we're seeing it unfold again.
Woody, you bring up a great point there because again, there was no fighting it when Donald Trump was president. Not only do we have the issues that happen in Israel today, and Benjamin Netanyahu has said Israel will respond at its own choosing and Iran will pay. Those are quotes from Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, no one was killed in Israel today as a result of the attacks, but there was a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv that killed 8 Israelis. The 2 perpetrators are deceased now. But again, you have a situation where Israel's now effectively fighting a 3-front war. You have Israeli troops in Gaza. You have Israeli troops in southern Lebanon. Over 2,000 strikes in Lebanon alone. And now you have the Iranians who have attacked Israel. Look, Woody, last time I looked, Israel did not attack Iran. Okay, they attacked Hezbollah, which is the Iranian proxy, but this is a pretty bold move by the Iranians. And even though no one was killed in it, on a direct attack today, it took a coordinated effort from the United States and from the Israelis to thwart that. And then to your point, we had a story out today, 16 Ukrainian prisoners of war executed by Russian soldiers, a clear violation of all codes of war, the Geneva Convention, every other international law. But the Russians just blatant disregard. Executing 16 POWs. Again, this war's gone on now for over 2 years. It didn't happen until Biden became CEO of the country. So more of the same coming up? It's going to be discussed tonight because Kamala Harris came out and said the United States thwarted 200 missile strikes. When Joe Biden said that, it was Kamala Harris. So while Harris is touting the Israeli support, Woody, I don't know. Give me your thoughts. We're going to have a debate tonight. Waltz is going to talk about it. J.D. Vance is going to talk about it. Will J.D. Vance be echoing your position that, hey, under Trump we didn't have this, now we have the world on fire?
Well, I hope so, because it's a good point to make. No one oversees this president. They don't have to like the president, but they have to respect him, right? And that's part of what keeps our country safe. It's clear that even the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, probably doesn't even respect Joe Biden because he's meeting with President Trump. Clearly, he sees, he met with Harris, or he's going to meet with Harris too, but clearly he sees that this is someone who could actually end the war because he's the one who's always been preventing it. My favorite story, he brought it up during the debate, was when he told the Taliban leader, hey, here's a picture of your house. If any of our people die, you're going to be gone, right? And that's the kind of leadership we need back in the White House, and we just don't have that now. And it's just not, it's no one finds it believable that Harris is going to be the best candidate for our national security.
It's amazing to me, Woody, about half of Americans in a poll I saw, again, it's a poll of talking about leadership and who would make commander in chief. It was like 50-50. Trump's maybe a slight lead on it, but given the fact that Trump has been president, and Woody, you and I talk about peace and prosperity, that's something Trump can tout. J.D. Vance can talk about it at the debate tonight, that while Trump was president, there were no wars in the Middle East. There was no Russia-Ukraine. Kim Jong-un, for all his missile launching and calling him Rocket Man, he went to the demilitarized zone between South Korea and North Korea, and they met. Okay, so, Trump has a record to stand on, and people are still trying to get to know Kamala Harris, and I just don't see the fact that people will view her as someone who can, bring the Russians and the Ukrainians together, as someone who can do something related to the Israel-Iran situation. It is so weak, Woody. While all this was going on today, Secretary Blinken, who's been to the Middle East no less than 10 times and has nothing to show for it, he was advocating today, yes, the U.S. will always support Israel, but again, echoing the same failed old ideas that the Biden-Harris administration has about a two-state solution. And, then while the Israelis have Hezbollah on the run right now, leaderless, a gap, he's advocating ceasefire. Who does that? When you have Hezbollah, you've decapitated the leadership. You have an opportunity to finish them off. Senator Tom Cotton, we talked about this yesterday, advocated strongly that now's the time to eliminate Hamas. People don't realize that they killed the leadership, but there's still some 10, 15,000 Hamas fighters that have weapons that Israel still has to deal with. So, Woody, are we going to see a three-front war in Israel now? Israel, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas? Give me your thoughts or predictions on that.
I don't know. It's been going on for so long, and my biggest criticism, of Netanyahu is that he hasn't just finished the job. And this is both a strength and a weakness. Israel has shown a ton of restraint in its responses to these provocative acts. They show a ton of restraint, but as a result, sometimes you let them kind of come back even stronger. If to use a metaphor, if Mexico was sending missiles into the United States, we wouldn't. I don't think it would be a proportionate response to just you take out one depot, we'll take out one of your depots. You have to completely eliminate their capability to respond back, and I just don't think that's what's happened.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And, you bring up the restraint issue. I think right now Israel can be unrestrained. They obviously don't respect Joe Biden. I think that's a little too strong. I take that back. Biden and Netanyahu have known each other forever. But the fact of the matter is the U.S. has been putting a lot of pressure on Israel, restrain, and they haven't done it. They've launched 2,000 attacks against targets in Lebanon. They've essentially leveled Gaza. They've killed most of the Hamas leadership other than Sinwar. Taking out Nasrallah was a big deal. The man had American blood on his hands and blood in many countries. And yet, now the question is, what will the Israeli response be to the Iranians? I guarantee you, Woody, that Biden, Harris, they're on the phone, Blinken with the Israelis saying, don't do it, don't do anymore, so let's stop, no one was killed. I just don't think there's going to be no response. They may not respond in the next 24 to 48 hours, but I think the Israelis believe that Biden's on his way out. Harris is going to be no friend of Israel. We know that for fact. Donald Trump was a big friend of Israel. After all, they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. They got the Abraham Accords. Trump and Netanyahu were very close. A lot of good things happened. And Trump, take him at his word. He really believes that he can help Netanyahu bring this war to an end. And maybe he can. But Woody, I'm betting that right now, just purely from a political point of view, the Israelis are looking more favorably towards a Donald Trump presidency. And they're taking the bet that, okay, if Trump wins, our actions are going to be vindicated. If Trump loses, we still have to protect our nation because our nation's under attack. Any political views on that? I mean, am I going up the wrong tree, or do you think I'm onto something here?
You're probably onto something, Mark. Like I said, I just don't think that Israel feels like that that America has their back right now. They just don't. And so, of course, they're going to use restraint because they have to fight for their own survival, right? So I just think that on all fronts, this is why we need Donald Trump back in the White House. Everything from Israel to Ukraine to China to literally to Mexico. We're facing a catastrophic foreign policy failure at on every single front on every single theater, and the current administration, the Harris-Biden administration, is completely unequipped to handle it.
Yeah, no, they really are. Now, Harris would make the argument, hey, we came to Israel, and she did make that argument today, that we came to Israel's defense. We used our Navy, our anti-missile systems, and us with the Israelis, we effectively shot down almost all of the 181 missiles that were launched by Iran. So, I mean, that's a fair point to make today, but longer standing, you've seen the comments that she's made about a two-state solution that, frankly, nobody in the Middle East wants. And it's sort of like old ideas. So, look, I'm going to give the administration a little bit of credit today because I'll take them at their word that they did help the Israelis. But I really believe Israel will make its own decisions, Woody, based upon what it feels is in its best national security interest. And who can blame them? Like you gave the perfect example. Missiles coming in from Mexico, we wouldn't put up with that. So they've addressed it in Lebanon.
I don't know. This president might.
Yeah, he sure got, yeah, right. Yeah, again, with domestic politics, when 3 or 4 of our major states are getting flooded out and people are losing homes, he's sitting on the beach. All right, look, we're going to take a little break here, but when we come back, we're going to dive into the vice presidential debate tonight. This one could be significant because unlike past years where they had presidential debates after the VP debate, that's not on the schedule for right now. And we'll talk a little bit about that and the oxygen Trump is not giving Harris on the other side of the break. Be back in 90 seconds.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever.
For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great.
With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
And we're back. Hey, folks, with gold near record highs, instability all over the world, not a bad idea to get a small portion of your portfolio and put it into precious metals, because when all the uncertainty, $35 trillion in debt in the United States, always good to have a little bit of a hedge. All right, Woody, we're back. Listen, the vice presidential debate tonight, Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, you're hearing stories in the media about how Tim Walz is unprepared. He's nervous. I'm not buying any of that. I mean, the guy's been governor of Minnesota. He may not be the greatest debater in the world. I've heard a lot of accolades for J.D. Vance. But look, Tim Walz has his own problems. J.D. Vance has been everywhere. I mean, you see him all over the media. The Trump campaign seems very happy with the job he's doing as an attack person, which is traditionally what a VP does. And Tim Walz has basically been like Kamala Harris. Nowhere. No interviews, no press conferences, a complete zero. What are you expecting tonight in the debate?
Well, I think we're finally going to see who the weird candidate in this race is, because it's not J.D. Vance.
And with J.D. Vance, obviously, guy's a sharp guy. I've seen his debate that he did with Congressman Ryan, and he did exceptionally well. The people of Ohio obviously liked it. But people don't know Tim Walz as well as J.D. Vance. I mean, Vance is a two-year United States senator. Walz was governor of Minnesota. But, I see these favorability, unfavorability polls, and they're the media, the legacy media, trying to make, the coach, down-to-earth type guy, paint a fair picture of him, and they obviously go out of their way to paint a negative picture of J.D. Vance. But the fact of the matter is, this guy Walz is about as far to left as Bernie Sanders, if not further left. The guy's been to China multiple times. I mean, who goes to China as many times as this guy did? What was his purpose in going there all the time? So a lot of ties to China on a leftist group. Look, Harris didn't pick him because he was to the right of her. He picked him because he's actually to the left of Kamala Harris, who was the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. So, yes, she's got 3.5 years track record, Woody, but the American people they don't know Tim Walz. And he has not been out there like J.D. Vance. Sure, you can disagree with J.D.'s policies if you want, fair game. But you can't say he hasn't been out among the media, doing press conferences, doing interviews, taking questions, tough questions too. And Walz, he hasn't been there for that.
Well, it just seems like every time he goes on camera, he kind of reminds me of Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons. He's always like doing some weird thing, and I just don't get it. And I know, like, the introduction of Walz as a candidate, as a VP, it's part of a grander strategy that the Democrats are trying to do. I was talking to a Democratic strategist the other day, and he was telling me how frustrated he was, that he felt like, well, for the past decade, I feel like we've given up patriotism and let the Republicans have it. And I was just like, well, that's just what your constituents respond to. So they try to get someone who's, quote unquote veteran, except there's his service record's rather questionable. He said he was a sergeant major. Turns out he wasn't. He didn't actually retire as a sergeant major. He also planned his exit right before his unit was being deployed to Iraq. I think the contrast between the two is going to come out really well tonight, because so far to the American people, we've been seeing a curated contrast, a curated caricature that the media portrays of J.D. Vance as weird. And when you see them side by side and they actually talk to each other unfiltered, the American people are going to see who the weird person is in this race.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And the other thing if JD makes the point about peace and prosperity under President Trump, I think that's going to go a long way. I mean, how is Waltz going to counter that? Well, under Biden-Harris, we've had almost 21% inflation. Check, very good. Under Biden and Harris, we have two wars going on, Russia and Ukraine, a three-front war in Israel with Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah. We've had at least 12 million illegal immigrants cross that border under Biden-Harris, could be more. We saw statistics the other day, over 600,000 criminals, people charged with a crime, including 13,000 murderers and sex offenders. So, when you stack up that record, yeah, the Democrats like to point out, well, crime's down. You can't put the crime thing around our neck. Oh, okay, it's down. Maybe statistically, but you go to any blue city across the country, these sanctuary cities, they're being inundated with these illegal immigrants and the crime and the social costs that go with it. Woody, I think JD's got a great story to tell tonight. Waltz, he's going to be out there. I can already predict it right now. Reproductive freedom, reproductive freedom, reproductive freedom, healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Trump, bad orange man, threat to democracy. Woody, it's almost predictable what's going to happen in the debate tonight.
Yeah, I one thing that's on my bingo card is I remember back in 2016 when Tim Kaine tried to call Mike Pence, you're Donald Trump's apprentice. He thought he had a really clever line there trying to invoke the TV show The Apprentice, but it just didn't land. So I'm wondering if he's going to try that again. And I just don't see how I agree with what you said earlier that there's really just an upside for Vance. I'm actually surprised that the Harris campaign even agreed to this debate. I actually thought they were going to back out.
Well, we've got some good news here. Our friend Autry Pruitt, he has fixed his technical problems. So Woody, you and I now have some assistance. Autry, if we can get you on the screen here. Oh, he's back. There he is.
So glad to be on board.
yeah, we onboarded you. You're back. You're back, and you're back on the team. All right, Autry, while you've been fixing your technical problems, I want to bring you into the discussion here because Woody and I have talked about what happened in Israel today, and obviously we talked about the debate tonight. And I wanted to get your opinion on both, because you had the technical difficulties. So, the clock is yours right now, Autry. I want our audience to hear your perspective. Israel, Iran, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Hamas, three-front war, and your thoughts on the debate tonight with Tim Waltz and J.D. Vance.
Well, I think there's the three-front war needs to be a 186-point war. Well, maybe not quite 186, but needs to be the majority of the world needs to stand up against Iran. One of the things that you learned in history is that if you allow terrorists and terrorism and crime to come from anywhere to somebody else just because it's not you, you ignore it, it's coming to you next. No one thought Germany in the late 1930s would be a problem for them. And then when the 40s rolled around, it became a problem for them, right? So the biggest takeaway, I say, is that this can't be just a war defined by Israel and then they get a little bit of help here or there. The world has to stand up and say, regardless of our issues with the Netanyahu regime, regardless of our issues with Israel historically, we are not going to allow you to terrorize citizens and terrorize legitimate governments because you choose them today and you'll choose us tomorrow. So that's what I have about Israel.
Great point. Well, let me ask you this, okay? We had the Israelis didn't attack first, okay? Hamas attacked them. They responded. Hezbollah has been launching rockets that displaced 60,000 Israeli citizens in northern Israel. They responded. They took out the Hezbollah leadership. They've 2,000 strikes, many of which were in Lebanon, taking out munitions, taking out leadership. But Israel had not attacked Iran, okay? They attacked an Iranian proxy in Hezbollah, but Israel had not launched rockets towards Iran. Iran is the provocator here, not Israel. So, Autry, what do you think the appropriate response, or will there be a response? Netanyahu came out just before Election Edge came on the air and said, Iran will pay a price for what it did today. If you were advising Netanyahu, what would you tell him at this point?
Well, both for Netanyahu and for the United States, I would say it's time to blow Iran off the face of the planet. I mean, I'm a little bit old school. I'm like Rome. You touch a Roman citizen, you're going down. So if I was Israel, I would just take over Iran and raise the star above Iran and put a number 2 by it and just say it's Israel Part 2. That's what I would do. The world needs to come to an understanding that if you attack a country, you're going to go to HE double hockey sticks. That has to be clear. The second thing that's important to notice, very important, is Iran is a state sponsor and host of terror. That's what they do. You said it's a proxy. I would argue that Iran is the state of Hamas. Iran is the state of Hezbollah. That's what they are. They are a terrorist state. And it's frankly time to take them out. And one of the problems I've had with several administrations across the board in the U.S. and somewhat even in Israel, although Benjamin Netanyahu was leaning different, is that when we get into these wars, we get into these fake, mealy, oh, I'm so concerned wars, oh, woe is me. If you're going to get into a war, get into a real war, start blowing stuff up, bring people to their knees quickly, end it quickly, and say, guess what? Now people of Iran, you're free. Because they don't want to be in it either way.
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu effectively made reference to that about 3 or 4 days ago, where he said, I'm not holding the Iranian people responsible for this, but I am holding the leadership responsible for it. So, and he made that crystal clear. So, Autry, as far as Israel taking steps against Iran, I think, if anything, they might go after their nuclear facilities and or the Iranian leadership. I do not think they're going to do something on a mass casualty type scale with the citizens, given what Netanyahu said. But again, the United States, Harrison, going to be urging restraint, okay? Trump came out and said, well, if he was president, then none of this would have happened in the first place. He's probably right about that. So, again, Trump's not going to be advocating for war 35 days out before an election when, he can talk about peace and prosperity under his watch. All right, let me shift Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the Harris and Biden administration, that's what we call them now, the Harris-Biden administration, which has been since the beginning because he's been a dead man walking. The Harris-Biden administration is for crime. They're for crime at the domestic level, at the state level, at the federal level, and at the international level. Wherever there's a criminal, Vice President Harris is there to support them. Ironic from a former prosecutor.
Sure seems that way, doesn't it? All right, let me shift. The debate coming up tonight, it's going to be on CBS, moderated by Margaret Brennan, host of Face the Nation, Nora O'Donnell, who used to be an anchor at CBS, been there forever. Mm-hmm. What are you expecting at the debate tonight? I want to add one thing. CBS coverage, we're not going to handicap a pre-debate, but the fact is 85% of their coverage has been favorable for Harris, 81% negative to Trump. Just going to get that statistic out there. So, again, Autry, heading into tonight, what does Vance want to accomplish and what does Waltz want to accomplish?
3 things. First, your word was correct, narrated. I have no reason to believe that this debate won't be like any other debate from the legacy media where it is narrated by them for the public. And when ABC was doing it, Harris was able to just glom onto the narration. So I think Waltz might be offered the same. What Vance has to do is Vance has to show seriousness, strength, and the ability to stay steadfast in disciplined messaging from front to back. That's what he has to show. people know who Donald Trump is. They know his message is a little bit undisciplined. He's a little bit more shoot from the hip. So they want to see a balance with Vance. I actually believe Vance can accomplish that. What Waltz has to do is the Vice President Harris dance. He has to figure out how he's going to dance around the fact that she doesn't want to take a position, and when she does take a position, it's different than the position she took an hour ago, which was different than the position she took last year, which was different than the position she articulated 3 minutes prior to that. So Waltz is going to have to figure out how to dance. Now, I will say this. Waltz is 100% capable. If you go back and watch Waltz, he's been in politics 20 years, I think. If you go back and watch him, he is 100% capable of doing what he's able to do, and so is J.D. Vance. I think the final point is usually vice presidential debates are more substantive, at least in the past 25 years, than presidential debates. They actually are more substantive. And so now's a chance, I think, for J.D. Vance to expand in a little bit more detail on the policies of President Trump going forward, and hopefully Waltz can just articulate any policies and some evidence to support them that Harris will probably support, which are the policies we're living under now. So I don't know how he's going to get away with that, but whatever.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating contrast tonight. And Woody, I'm going to come to you after the break, but one thing I do want to point out here, the microphones are not muted tonight. So unlike Trump and his debate with Biden and Harris, this could turn into a free-for-all tonight. All right, look, we're a little past break. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to dive into some of the fresh polling numbers that came out today. Very, very tight still, but some indication of movement in Trump's favor. Okay, be back in 90 seconds.
All right, General Flynn has been in the hot seat, so has Sam Sorbo. Well, it looks like I'm up next. So if you want to ask me absolutely anything, join our members only live and question event October 2nd. It's a Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can hop on, ask me absolutely anything. Obviously, I can tell you how the sausage is made, if you will, when it comes to anything media related, but also, anything you want to ask, join me live. It's going to be a fun event where we can talk personally. So make sure that you are a member so you can join. And if you're not a member, there will be a limited number of tickets available, but I hope to see you there. So again, join me on October 2nd, Wednesday at 8 p.m.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to thepatriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
Folks, got my Donor Deck right here, like I've been telling you. If Trump wins, this Donor Deck is going to be a collector's item with the coin. So look, whether you want to buy them as gifts, commemorative items, something for your kids, something for Christmas under the stockings, these are great little items. So just scroll down on our webpage to Election Edge, click it, it'll take you right to the Donor Deck. All right, gentlemen, we had some polling come out. Woody, I'll start with you. Somewhat favorable towards Trump. You got some decent numbers in North Carolina. You got some decent numbers in Pennsylvania. He's already seen some pretty good numbers out west in Arizona. Let me give you these and have you comment on. Rasmussen has Trump up 2 nationally. And interesting thing, married women for plus 14 for Trump. Unmarried women, minus 14 for Trump. Dead offset there. Trafalgar in Pennsylvania has Trump up 2, but 538, they've got Harris up by less than a point, about 7/10. What are you making about the Pennsylvania poll numbers? It seems Pennsylvania, it seems Carolina, Arizona, some of these numbers are edging towards Trump, but in other areas, still murky, and they're all very tight.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, when you are married and you have a family and maybe even you have children and you see what the left is doing to our schools and at our border, of course you're going to vote for Republicans, right? I mean, Autry, I don't know if you have kids. I have 2. And I could tell you my wife is much more right-wing now than she was when I found her. And it's getting out of control. I mean, frankly, and so when I remember J.D. Vance got in so much trouble because he said childless cat ladies, I mean, he was just, to me, he was just talking about demographics.
Autry, how do you see these poll numbers? I mean, these were decent numbers for Trump, but again, Pennsylvania, very tight. North Carolina, very tight. I saw one poll had Trump plus 3 or 4 in Georgia, another had him tied. What are you making right now as we're 35 days out until Election Day?
Yeah, I'm making that it's in a dead heat. I'm a little bit different. I'm not one of the conservatives that jumps on the bandwagon and says, "Oh my gosh, we're eking up." We're not eking up. It's a dead heat. Statistically, all polls have what's called a margin of error. That margin of error usually sits on an average poll between 3% and 3.5%. I think the average margin of error right now is 3.5%, meaning it's 3.5% either way. That means until it gets to 4-point difference, you're not really seeing a movement. It can be either way. We are in a dead heat. Every vote matters. Every message matters. Every rally matters. Every commercial matters. Every debate matters. That's what I read. I read that right now the country in these states and even the country nationally is divided. Now, there is a tiny bit of good news for President Trump. If you look at the historical results going from 2020, 2018, and 2016, in the states and in the areas that Trump lost, Biden or Hillary Clinton, as the case may be, had to outperform, or Republicans had to outperform the polls by 4 points. So in other words, if the margin of error was set at 4%, they had to be at 8% to outperform the polls. So they were off a little bit. Now, I actually don't think that's the case this time. Most of the nation is more comfortable with Trump. A lot of individuals who once were running away from Trump are now saying, I'm not going to run. The nation's used to him. It's not such condemnation, unless you're in certain elite circles, to aspire to vote for Trump or to want to vote for Trump. So it's in a dead heat. The upside for Trump is that for Kamala Harris to be ahead statistically, she should be about 2 points ahead of the margin of error. So Donald Trump probably is ahead by a half a point, but that's so close. 100 votes, 200 votes could change that in any given precinct. So right now, every vote matters. Voting matters. You have to vote. That's the message that we have to take from these polls.
Audrey, I think you're right about that because, look, these things fluctuate back and forth, and a poll is just a snapshot in time. One thing we have not seen in this race since Harris replaced Biden, obviously Trump was way ahead of Biden, and now statistically, real clear politics average has Harris up about 2 points. As we've said many times on Election Edge, if it turns out nationally on election night that Harris gets 50, Trump gets 48, and 2 points go to others, that's likely a Trump win. But we won't know till election night because a lot of it, Autry, it's going to depend upon who gets their voters to the polls, who gets these newly registered voters to the polls, and what's the turnout like for the respective parties. Let me ask you this. Again, some data all over the map. I mean, I saw that NBC piece that came out showing Hispanic voters, Harris up 14 points, which is way down from where it was with Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and then now with Harris. I mean, getting better every time. But then I've seen other polling that shows Trump within 5 points of Hispanic voters. And Autry, let me ask you this question. African American voters, I'm seeing statistics showing black men under the age of 50 really going towards Donald Trump, but black women over the age of 50, you can't hardly find a Trump voter with a flashlight. So what are you seeing in the African American community related to can Donald Trump hit the mid-20s aggregately?
I believe he can with black voters, particularly with black men, because he would outperform with black men, particularly historically. The reason I believe this is not really from the polling data I look at. I'm looking at where the Democrats or where the progressive left are spending their money. The NAACP just took out almost a $4 million ad buy in these last 30 days. That I believe was in the Journal. You've got progressive organizations spending heavily on black men, not black women. They're spending heavily on the places online, on radio, television, and social where black men are located and where younger black men. I'm in Generation X. We're not even talking about, we're talking the late millennials all the way to generation below us, Z, that's just not voting. I believe that you're right because of that reason. You're seeing where they're spending their advertising dollars. So their polls are telling them what our polls are telling us, that Donald Trump is outperforming with black men, particularly under the age of 35, performing even better with 35 to 45. And then with black women, he's just underwater completely. They're not putting any money there. So I think you're right. I think he could hit 25% easy. And like I've said before, if it comes out election day, they said he had 18, then you could probably give him 4 points. And he was really at 22.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that.
Please, Woody. Yeah, go ahead.
You absolutely should look where Democrats are spending their money. One thing I've seen, and I know a lot of people in kind of the TikTok influencer space, and there has been this massive operation to recruit influencers on TikTok with huge followings to promote, Harris. And because it's exactly what Autry is saying. They're losing with black voters. They're losing with young voters. I believe that Generation Z, or Zoomers, as I like to call them, are probably going to be, probably the most conservative young generation we've had in a while. And when you go on TikTok, there are conservative influencers. The difference is none of them are being paid by the Trump campaign. All the influencers shilling for Harris are paid to do that. So it's all this just very astroturf fake campaign that has no real grassroots momentum. It's all just propped up by legacy media and people literally just paying for guys on TikToks to say nice things about you.
Woody, what do you see relative to Hispanic vote? I mean, I've seen it. It literally is all over the map, but from the polls I've looked at, have you seen anything definitive breaking one way or another for Trump or for Harris?
Nothing definitive. I mean, it's been back and forth. I think, there's a lot of Hispanic people who came here, legally, and, there's a lot of Hispanic people who have been here longer than white people have. And they don't, and you've seen even in the last few cycles, a lot of these border districts that historically have voted overwhelmingly Democrat make a huge swing towards the Republican Party. So I'm looking at a lot of these districts, these congressional districts in Texas and in Arizona that might have historically been Democrat districts that are going to go for Trump and probably even go for Republicans down ticket as well.
Yeah, Woody mentioned earlier about kids.
Go ahead.
And I think he's, Woody mentioned earlier about kids, and he's 100% right about that. Hispanic families have usually more kids than both white families and black families combined, traditional white families, traditional black families combined. I myself have 2 kids, so I very much understand where you're coming from. And I think individuals are looking at their kids saying, what are you leaving to our kids? It's hard enough to provide for our kids as it currently sets. And now you're taking an economy and destroying it so that when our kids are supposed to go out on their own, now they're going to have to live with us until they're 30. It's unprecedented.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented.
What both
Zoomers, I'm going to take that, by the way, Woody. I'm going to take that.
You're welcome.
You guys are great. And you know what? The point you're both making almost boils down to an economic argument, okay? Because I was thinking about this while both of you guys were talking. Harris and Waltz, they pound the abortion issue, they pound the healthcare issue. But you know what? The message at this point in the game is the 5 to 10%, it's not 10, folks, it's probably 5 to 7% of the truly undecided voters. What's going to make them go to one candidate or another? And Autry, I got to believe the people pushing the abortion, healthcare, they're already, for the most part, voting for Harris. And poll after poll after poll, regardless of what part of the country, say the economy, inflation is the top issue, and illegal immigration and the border is the second issue. So I think you're making both great points. And when people look at their economic upward mobility, I think it doesn't matter whether you're white, Asian, Hispanic, African American. I think people are looking back saying, hey, when Trump was president, I had more money in my pocket and we didn't deal with 20% inflation under Biden. It was running 1.5% under Trump. Yeah, it's come down to 2.5% to 3%, but price is still highly elevated. And I think that's what's got people ticked off. All right, we're going to take our final break. But when we come back, we're going to dive into some other key points in the election. And we got a really good Trump ad we're going to show you as soon as we come back from break. Be back in 90 seconds.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to thepatriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now. Have a new product or idea, whether it's already in production or just a concept. Whether you're an individual, a small business, or a medium-sized company, our upcoming show on Patriot TV is here to showcase it to millions and launch it in a big way. We're looking for businesses like yours to feature your product on our new show and pitch it to over 6 million followers, eager to support like-minded businesses. Whether it's a single product or a new product line, we have a platform to skyrocket sales. With powerful Patriot TV ads, targeted direct mail, and the influence of our dynamic show hosts, your product will get the attention it deserves. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Email us now at advertise@patriot.tv to secure your spot and watch your sales take off.
And we're back, folks. Madam Producer, if you could key up that Donald Trump ad, I think our audience would really appreciate it.
Like us, China also saw their weakness. So did Putin. Then he invaded Ukraine. Hamas saw Harris' anti-Israel statements and will use it as a green light to keep murdering Israelis. And Iran thinks Harris is so incompetent. New intel shows they're trying to help Harris win the election. America doesn't need another TikTok performer. We need the strength that will protect us.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Autry, pretty powerful message if you ask me.
Yeah. I think it's a very powerful message. I think it hits straight to the point, and it's targeting individuals in all camps that are concerned about where their future is going. It definitely is. It's quick. It's to the point. It's very Trump-esque. Um, you don't need to over-explain. If you find yourself over-explaining in a political commercial, you're on the losing side.
What you've done a few of those commercials. What are your thoughts on that ad?
I mean, I love it. I mean, it really kind of speaks for itself. It's a great ad. I saw an ad the other day that, it definitely worked on me, but I would say I was already in the tank for Trump, where Trump was attacking Harris for, transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants and prisoners, which, hey, I find that outrageous. But it's just like, and it's true, but it's just so unbelievable that I don't even know how effective it is. This is a believable ad, and just like to Autry's point, when you're over explaining, you're losing. And this ad doesn't just tell, it shows.
You guys are both in the media business. Autry, you run a PAC, and I've heard it said that negative ads are 5 times more effective than positive ads. And that, again, in the state of Pennsylvania, people are being blanketed with ads. What's your perspective on that? Is that true that the negative ads carry 5 times more of the weight than positive ones?
There's a famous story where George Bush the first was running after with Barbara Bush after against not Bill Clinton, against who was his opponent the first time when Ronald Reagan's term was over. He's running to caucus. And Barbara Bush said, "Oh, I don't want to go negative. It's so dull. It's so horrible." And Karl Rove pulled aside and said, "Listen, do you want to win or do you want to lose? Because you're on your way to losing big." And they let Karl Rove take over. They let Roger Ailes take over, and the rest is history for Bush's first term. Yes, that's my way of saying yes. Negative ads work, but I don't want to say negative. I want to say, you're telling the truth that people want to already know but are afraid to say, right? If you look at true, good political negative advertising, that's what it does. It pierces through and it gets to a truth that people are afraid to say, but they know in their hearts.
Woody, there was a guy named Lee Atwater that was pretty good at it too, Autry. He was helping those Bush boys campaign. He's deceased now, but Woody, your thoughts on the thing? Negative advertising versus positive? From what I'm hearing, Trump's pummeling in the swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. They're dropping a ton of ads on Harris's head, and they got plenty of negative things to talk about.
I love that story that Autry told, because one of the ways that Carl, and that story, everyone knows it in our industry, because one part was, there was a poll, I believe, that actually said, "Oh, no one likes negative ads." And of course, if you see a poll and they say, "Do you like negative ads?" you're going to say, "No, of course not." But they work, because what Karl Rove saw is he looked at the ratings of TV shows that were playing, and they were all negative shows. Shows like, I don't know what was playing at the time, but shows like Jerry Springer or Ricky Lake, shows with a lot of drama and negativity. That's what, hate is just a stronger motivator than love. There's just no better way to say it. So, when you look at past elections, most of the time people they vote against someone as much as they vote, probably more than they vote for someone. Although in this case, I would say there's plenty of reason to vote for Trump. And most of the time when people don't vote for him, it's just because they don't like him, not because they love Harris.
Well, true.
Yeah, I get questions all the time like that.
Go ahead, Autry. Yeah, go ahead. Autry.
No, I was saying I get questions all the time, and this is why I like my colleague Woody here so much, because the business, and hopefully your audience can understand this, the business of politics, getting someone elected to office, is different than governing. And oftentimes, if you're a political consultant, because we do a lot of political consulting work also at my firm, in addition to running PACs, if you're a political consultant, one of the things you've got to get your candidate to understand is being a candidate is different than being a legislator or being an executive. And a lot of times you see great candidates, horrible actual legislators, actual politicians, or the reverse of that. Great politicians, horrible candidates. Sometimes you can get both. Ted Cruz is a great example of that. He's done a lot of improvement. President Clinton was a great example of that. President Obama was a decent example of that. Great candidates, and great from their perspective, legislatures or politicians. So hopefully one of the things your audience can begin to understand that it could be new and interesting, and why I love your program, Marcus, because of the variety of guests you have on, is that the business of politics is very different than the business of passing laws. And so a lot of people will look and say, oh, I don't like the negative advertising, or I don't want this, or I don't want that. But they're not in the professional business of getting people votes.
Yeah, that is a great point, Autry. I mean, that really is. I appreciate the compliment there. You know, gentleman, Trump, right on cue, right after we came on the air, has referred to Governor Walz as incompetent. Okay, he's a moron and he's sick. Right on cue. I mean, now the media, of course, will blast Trump for stating this, just like they blasted him when he came out and said that Comrade Kamala is going to be cognitively, challenged, to do the job. But Woody, again, the negative connotations, they're not about policies. They're using the inference, negative comments about both Walz and Harris. Trump is saying it. It's getting replayed in the media. Last I checked, that's a lot of free media there where they're talking about what Trump says, not what Harris and Walz say.
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Yeah, that's a question for you.
It felt more like a statement, right? I mean, absolutely. I mean, Trump plays the media like a fiddle. I mean, he gets them to publish everything he says to the point where it becomes ridiculous. It's like a bed of nails, right? It becomes, you lie on a bed of nails and you don't get hurt. But when it's one nail, it hurts a lot. In this case, it's a bed of nails, and it's another 2 scoops of ice cream, and most normal people are just not even going to pay attention to that stuff, and they go, oh yeah, it's Trump again. Here's his name.
You hit on something really important quickly. That is what they're making a mistake. They're playing the legacy media is going back to the Trump of 2016 as if it's shock and awe. You can't believe what he said. Well, that's done. That's why they couldn't play the debate thing quite right. Oh, Trump sort of meandered a little bit, and he brought in some points. He went off on a tangent. Well, people now for 10 years, people have been used to President Trump, the Trump of politics. And so now that's baked in. So, he called Walz a moron. Okay, he may not be a moron, but he's trying to make a larger point. Everybody knows it instinctively now. And the only thing this is firing up is the base that's already voted for Harris 15 times because they're dead and voted too.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point. And the one thing I agreed with Hillary Clinton on when people were asking her about Harris's duck the media strategy, she goes, 2016, I had policies out the wazoo. I talked policy. Look what it got me. I got beat by Trump. That's Hillary Rodham Clinton saying that. All right, gentlemen, 30 seconds left, 15 seconds apiece. Who wins tonight's debate, and does it really matter in the big picture? Autry, start with you.
I think by default, J.D. Vance is probably going to win tonight's debate because he has the most to gain and almost nothing to lose. I don't think there's a bottom he can fall below, so he can just only go up in the eyes of the American people.
Woody, 10 seconds.
I agree, but I also don't think it really matters.
Gentlemen, listen, you both were great on this show. Autry, we're so happy you fixed your technical issues. Woody, great commentary as always. Look forward to having both you guys back. All right, folks, watch the debate tonight. Election Edge will be here tomorrow. We'll break it all down for you. Have a good evening. See you on Wednesday.